Calvin Johnson, no doubt. You knew immediately that he was going to be a Hall of Famer. All I ever thought about was just being the best, like doing whatever I can to compete at a high level. This fraternity that we have, this Florida State football family that we have, is special to me.
Man, what's up, y'all? It's Freddie Stevenson from Trials of Triumph. I just want to say thank you to everybody for supporting last week's episode with Richie Leonard IV. And we have another amazing episode coming up this week with Ernie Sims. He talks about going from being a 5-star to being the first-round draft pick, his time at Florida State, and having an opportunity to come back and coach now for Florida State. But first, I'd like to take the time out to thank our presenting sponsor. Stein Financial is a registered investment advisory firm, building tailored wealth and asset management services for individuals, families, businesses, and trusts. I'd love to thank them for being our presenting sponsor for this episode. Make sure you give them a call at 850-737-4752. And I'd also like to thank our other sponsors, T1RX, Indie Atlantic Films, and Concord Coffee. But let's get into this episode, man. I appreciate you just taking the time out to even sit down with me. Florida State legend, just taking the time out of schedule. I know y'all busy, but I appreciate you. I don't watch you from afar. And just to be able to sit down with you in your presence, man, it's a blessing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, first let me say, if it hadn't been you, I probably would have said no. But this fraternity that we have, this Florida State football family that we have, is special to me. So I'm doing it for you because I want to make sure that we're continuing to lift and elevate our program.
Much love.
A lot to me.
Yes, I appreciate it. I want to talk about the beginning, start with the beginning, growing up in Tallahassee, Florida. What was it like for you?
Well, I mean, growing up in Tallahassee is nothing like what you see today. You know, Tallahassee was, in my eyes, was a very small rural college town that just happened to be the capital. And, you know, both my mom and my dad played collegiate sports here at Florida State. And after they got done playing sports here and going to school, they decided to raise a family here in Tallahassee. So I grew up literally a couple miles down the road from here, off of Lake Bradford, in a community called J.K. the Community. And there in that area, I grew up playing for the J.K. the Giants. And
what age did you start getting into sports?
So I didn't get into football until I was about 11, 12 years old. When I started playing sports, my first sport was actually soccer. That didn't last too long because I was a little too physical there on the field. I played a little bit of t-ball. Wasn't very good at t-ball because I couldn't see. Like during my whole growing up, you know, when I was in high school, I never could see. You know, we didn't have enough for me to afford contacts. And when I was playing sports, I didn't want to wear the goggles. So I just went out there and just played. So baseball was a sport that, you know, I looked good in what I was wearing, but I never could really perform well enough or see well enough to compete at a high level. And then track and field. Track and field was always something that was natural to me. And just being a naturally fast kid and just genetics that God has blessed me with, you know, that was something that really came natural to me.
At which point, while you were younger, did you realize, you know, of course, coming from a family of athletes, did you realize that you had a chance to be special in this game of football?
You know, that's a good question. It really came down to my sophomore year in high school. So my 8th grade year in high school, kind of to go back, I was playing junior varsity there at North Florida Christian High School. And then at the end of that season, I moved up to varsity. And we had guys like Claudius Osei, Constantine Richmond. Claudius played safety here at Florida State. Constantine Richmond ended up playing defensive end at the University of Tennessee. Matt Hines played offensive line here. All of those guys was on that same team. And we ended up winning the state championship that 8th grade year.
Okay.
And then the 9th grade year, I played on varsity, and we had a lot of good players on that team. and we ended up winning the state that year as well. And then the next year after that, my sophomore year, is when we started getting myself started getting a lot of recognition of the type of player I was. And then at the end of that season, when we won state that year, I performed very well at running back. That's when I realized that, okay, yes, outside of track and field, outside of all of the things that I was doing, I feel like that was the breaking point for me, or the aha moment for me, that I can really excel on the next level.
During your recruitment process, of course, being one of the top players in the country, were there any schools that stood out to you outside of Florida State, or was it Florida State the whole entire time?
You know, people don't realize this. Some people may, but Florida State had always been at the top of my mind.
Okay.
Just being a Seminole, you know. But I will say this, is that Florida State didn't recruit me as heavy until my senior year, you know. And, you know, Kevin Steele was one of the ones that really took it over the top for me. You know, he was able to connect with me, not only as a player, but as a man, as a young man. And that was one of the things that really won me over, outside of Florida State, the Garden and Gold, the brand, the Bobby Bowden, and everything that came along with it. But I will say that, you know, part of the recruiting process, the finalists that came down to it was Florida State, Miami, Georgia, and Auburn. You know, Auburn was probably the closest to me going somewhere outside of Florida State, and the biggest reason for that was, you know, the atmosphere, the environment resembled Florida, Tallahassee for me. And I had a really cool relationship with Eddie Grant, who was the running back coach. His younger daughter, and one of his daughters had autism. And, you know, we just always had that connection. And they had you know, a lot of running backs, you know, in their Auburn at the time: Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, Brandon Jacobs. They had a lot of really good players. And I just feel like that was, if it wasn't going to be Florida State, that was probably going to be a place that I would go.
Was it surreal for you once you made the decision to come to Florida State, knowing that you were playing for your dream school?
You know, be honest with you, no. I'm not going to sit here and act like it was something that just was a big deal for me. I would say the NFL really blew my mind more than me coming to Florida State. Me being around the program during that time when I was coming out of high school, all I ever thought about was just being the best, like doing whatever I can to compete at a high level. So when I arrived on campus, yes, it was fun. It was exciting for a new opportunity, but it was nowhere to the level of me stepping into the NFL and what that experience was.
Stein Financial is an independent fee-only fiduciary investment advisory firm, building tailored wealth management and asset management services for families, businesses, individuals, and trusts. As a fiduciary, Stein Financial is obligated to act in your interests, always sitting at your side of the table. No selling financial products, no commissions, just their expertise working as a personal CFO to help you reach your personal financial goals. They do better as you do better, just as it should be. Bennett Stein, firm founder and owner, is a CPA and certified financial planner, and he utilizes his background in portfolio management, business valuation, and tax in order to offer services to help you reach your financial goals. Plus, he's a lifelong Seminole fan and FSU grad, and he's always willing to talk about all things FSU. That's Stein Financial. Give them a call today at 850-737-4752. You had the opportunity to be under a coach like Coach Bowden and, you know, be around the Mickey Andrews of the world. Could you talk about these are coaches that not only develop you into better players, but better men off the field. Do you have any stories during your time at Florida State that stand out from them?
Well, I will say this: Bobby Bowden and Mickey Andrews, they're they're similar, but they're different. They were able to instill a certain level of character and identity in players by the way they led, by the way they carried themselves. But at the same time, they were able to impact me for a lifetime, and many of us that came before me and after me. I will say that with Mickey, you know, one thing that they were adamant about when we were here was no shirts hanging out of your pants when you were in practice, even in the games. And everybody had to be uniform. There was nobody wearing black. And one Monday practice, a couple of our players, you know, decided they wanted to wear some black. They wanted to wear their shirts out and everything. And Mickey wasn't having it. And if you hear stories about Mickey Andrews, he wasn't afraid to jump down your throat.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to challenge you. And that's when he decided to jump down some of our players' throats, and we all paid the consequence for it. Mm-hmm. And I still remember to this day, I would say, I may be exaggerating, but it felt like we did about 200 up downs after practice. And it was pretty brutal because, you know, during that time, I mean, we had some dudes on that defense. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm talking about guys that were drafted in the first round to third round and played in the league for a significant amount of time, and all of us fell in line with what Bobby and in that instance Mickey wanted us to do. And I think that really speaks volumes to where the culture was there at Florida State during that time, is that we all was on the one mission. We were uniform, and it didn't matter how talented we were, and we had a lot of talent on that defense at that time. We all understood what the mission was, and I think that's what really drove us to being what we were back in those days. Yes, we didn't win that championship like, you know, with the '99 team, but when it came to that 2003, 2014, we were dang good, and it's because of what Mickey. The identity that they instilled in us every single day.
Earlier, you mentioned how surreal it was for you to have the opportunity to play in the NFL, and you were blessed to be an individual that went early in the draft. Kind of walk me through that process as a person that's been in the game and you've had parents that were athletes. Now you have opportunity to do it at the highest level, you know, be a master of your profession.
Yeah, so, I mean, going to the NFL, first and foremost, I didn't want to go to the draft scene per se. I wanted to enjoy that moment, getting drafted with my family, and it was my family from Belgrade, my family from Sanford, family from Savannah, Georgia, and we all embraced and enjoyed that moment together. And I remember like it was yesterday. You know, everybody was crying, you know, celebrating. It was a very surreal moment. And just like that, we was getting in a car service, being ushered off to go to a press conference up in Detroit. And when I got there, the first several months, you know, I was like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was still eager, just like I was when I was a little boy, when I first stepped foot on Jake Gaither field there on the South Side, and playing Pee Wee and having to move up to the varsity, junior varsity, because I was overweight. My eyes were wide open, and I was ready to compete and give everything that I had. But those humbling moments, those early moments, were some of the moments that I still carry with me still to this day. And I'm grateful for my parents, because, you know, leading up to those moments, they were the ones that instilled the toughness in me, the consistency in me, the details and the tools that I was able to carry with me up to that moment. They were the ones that instilled that in me, and that I'm grateful for. But that surreal moment is something that I'm grateful for. And now that I'm a coach, I get opportunity to pour back into the young men, and share those experiences, the challenging moments. And people always talk about the good times, but I'm gonna be honest with you, the bad times are some of the times, or most of the times, that I get a chance to really truly make an impact with these young men. And that's essentially why I decided to get into coaching.
Definitely.
You know,
when you were in Detroit, you talked about the bad times and being able to deal with adversity. Y'all had to deal with a lot of it in Detroit. What was the mindset in the locker room while you were dealing with it? Sometimes when you're going through adversity, you have guys that are all in regardless. Then you have some guys in the locker room that check out.
Yeah, so that my time there with the Detroit Lions was bittersweet, and I say it was bittersweet because the sweet part of it is I grew tremendously. Like it opened my eyes for me to grow as a man. It was bitter because it was some tough growing moments, and when I arrived there to Detroit, it was a fractured organization from my perspective, and there were some very talented players, no doubt, but our culture wasn't where it needed to be for us to consistently win week over week, and I was a part of that. I was the first round draft pick that was drafted to corners and steers in the right direction, at least from a defensive standpoint. And I tell people all the time, some of the hardest moments that I've been through in my life was going 0-16 our third year, and I vividly remember like it was yesterday, crying my eyes out. I hated losing. I didn't know how to deal with losing. I didn't know how to rebound, because up to that point, the 1 year that we had at Florida State, where I think we lost 5 games. That was the most losing I've been a part of my whole entire life. So up to that moment, it was very challenging for me. But those bitter moments really built me. They strengthened my heart. They strengthened my mind of how to approach many different challenges in my life. And I'm grateful for the players that I went through with it. Guys like John Kentner, guys like Dan Orlowski. Those guys are the guys that I call brothers for life. And although we went on our different paths and everything, but those bitter moments are what built the identity of who I am today. And those sweet moments of me seeing the growth of who I am, I'm just extremely grateful for those moments. But there's no doubt about it. It was challenging. It was very challenging.
Men weren't built to coast. We were built to conquer. T1RX delivers physician-led testosterone therapy and supplements forged for operators. No fluff, no excuses, just results. Visit T1RX.com and take back the edge. At the tail end of your time in Detroit, you had guys like Stafford and Calvin Johnson coming in. Are those guys that you knew early on that would go on to do the things that they've been able to do in the league?
Stafford came in after Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson, no doubt, you knew immediately that he was going to be a Hall of Famer. Calvin, he came in after Roy, and at that time we needed a spark. We needed somebody to steer us in the right direction. And Matthew Stafford, I tell you what, he was young, coming from Georgia. He was young, but I tell you what, he had just this moxie about him, and you knew that he was going to be special. And here it is today. It's 10 plus years, and he's still in the NFL, still making waves and living the life that he was destined to do.
During your time with the Cowboys, I don't know what it's like, but just watching it from afar, me being a Bucs fan, we hate the Cowboys. It's just one side of my family Bucs fans, the other side Cowboys fans. But I've always had a high level of respect for the Cowboys. You know how it is in college, just like we play against Miami and Florida, you still have respect for your opponent. What was it like having the opportunity to play for quote unquote America's team?
There's a different brand with the Cowboys. It's a kind of your Louis Vuittons, your Gucci's, and then you got your Coaches and all your other brands of luggage. When you play for the Cowboys, the standard is higher. The exposure, the name recognition. And as you just exuded that the fan base is prouder. They travel. They go from coastline to coastline to follow their brand. And playing for the Cowboys, it was there towards the end of my career, and I was drawn there from my previous head coach, Rob Marinelli, who was the head coach for us for the Detroit Lions. And he was the defense coordinator there, and I was very grateful to play with guys like DeMarcus Ware, Tony Romo. I mean, those guys were true pros. Very, very, to a certain degree, I kind of wish that was an organization that I was able to start with, that I can kind of learn the ropes, learn how to be a pro. Starting off there in Detroit. But playing for the Cowboys, like I said, it's a different standard.
I wanted to ask this, because I know you had time with the Eagles as well. What's the difference? You got two super passionate fan bases, rivals. What's the difference in culture between the two, the Eagles and the Cowboys?
The Cowboys. How can I explain this? They're a little more up class. Where the Eagles, Philadelphia. I mean, it's a little more grittier. I love Philadelphia was by far the best team, organization, and best experience that I had in the NFL. Okay. And while it was short-lived, I thought that the team, the atmosphere, the culture that we had, the roster that we had was really, really phenomenal. That was one of the only seasons that I won. Being a part of a team, we won and went to the playoffs. But the city itself really kind of fell in line of just kind of what I feel like my identity was. Being gritty, hardworking, a little crazy, but it was a unique experience, and it's also important to know that Philadelphia and the Cowboys, I've played on both sides of it. That it's a big time rivalry game.
Definitely. Earlier you talked about your passion for coaching and impacting the next generation. Now that you have an opportunity to do it, I remember when you started out training and you with big hits, we would coming up there training with you guys in the off season. Now that you have an opportunity to make that impact on the next generation and do it for your alma mater, kind of walk me through what that means to you and your philosophy when you're reaching out to these younger players to make an impact.
Yeah, so coaching, part of me jumping into the coaching stems from my retirement from the NFL. And when I retired from the NFL, it was a very dark moment for me in my life. Ever since I was a little boy, I had been excelling and playing football and participating in sports. And for many people, just like yourself, that window of opportunity, it closes on you. And for me, it closed it kind of unexpectedly, in a time that I did not expect it. And after I was able to overcome that dark moment in my life, I felt an urge. I felt an urge to, number one, get back around football, something that I had been a part of and had excelled at for so long. But number two, and probably in the bigger picture, was find a sense of purpose. And that's where I found coaching, where it was natural for me to step onto the field with some cleats on and show the kids how to do a particular drill, or share with them from a bigger picture of how we're trying to execute from a defense perspective. It was natural for me to sit a young man down and say, listen, this is what I've been able to accomplish in my life. These are the things that I have failed at. I have failed flat on my face. And here's how you can keep yourself from going that direction. It kind of came natural to me. And I started, kind of getting the itch when I was working with Under Armour with guys like Dion and everything. And like you said, I had my training facility, so I was kind of doing some training on the side or whatnot. And then I found my way of getting my first opportunity there at FAU on the Lane Kiffin. And part of why I'm so passionate about coaching is not for the money, because the money's gonna come and it's gonna go. Well, what I do it for is for the people.
Mm-hmm.
And this game is special. And as you know, this game has a dark side to it as well. It can eat you up, use you, and it's gonna spit you right back out. Mm-hmm. And what I want to accomplish is that I want to make sure that each and every young man can extract the good out of this game while they have an opportunity to through what I have experienced. And obviously, I still have that competitive drive. I want to win.
Yeah.
I want to do it at a high level. Mm-hmm. But the people that I surround myself around, I want to make sure that they feel that passion from me, and they feel that urge, and they feel that they're getting driven, they getting help and guided through the whole process as well.
Man, shoot, I know we don't have much time today, but I just appreciate you taking, the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us, man. It's just your story. Like I said, I watched you from afar, and to finally get out, support it. Came there, train with you guys, and to be able to sit down with you and hear your story, man, it's a blessing, man. And I'm rocking with y'all all the way. You already know what it is.
You ain't got no choice.
I ain't got no choice, but I'm just saying now I'm a fan, so. And that's what I have to remind myself of. Now I'm a fan, but just watching y'all from afar, man, and seeing guys that I looked up to now being, part of the program, man, it's dope to see.
Yeah.
Sir, bro.
Well, the work that you are doing now, and be honest with you, the work that you have done in the past has built it to what we're doing, to where we're going. So I tremendously appreciate you, and you have sowed the seeds, and now just same thing with myself. Mm-hmm. I have sowed the seeds, and now these young men are reaping the benefit of what we have done in the past. So you will forever will always be no-blooded. You will be a brother to me, although we were different eras. Mm-hmm. And it's up to us to continue to uplift these young men.
Yes, sir.
And make sure that we're doing everything we can to help this program win.
Yes, sir, appreciate you.
Well, Freddie, how you doing?
Man, I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad we've kind of figured out, a virtual setting for this. I know we've both been super busy, but we want to talk football. We talk about football all the time in text. So excited to be able to talk football, from our house. Every once in a while.
No
But I mean, before we jump into it, I think we'll talk a little bit college, talk Mike Gundy, NFL, stuff like that. We're coming out of the Ernie Sims episode, which I've had a chance to look back in, and it was super. I think this episode specifically really showed me, how much of a fraternity Florida State football is, having not been a fan of the Seminoles my whole life, but knowing a lot through you, it was nice seeing him have such a respect for your game and what your team did. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as well, but I that was the first thing that struck out to me when I was watching the episode again.
Yeah, no, Ernie's a guy that I watched, growing up, and I didn't grow up a Florida State fan, but he's a guy, playing linebacker that had a high level of respect for. Like, he was a 5-star linebacker, produced at a high level in college, first-round draft pick. So, so for him to, take time out of his busy schedule to come on, that was dope.
Yeah, and it's nice now to see, how gracious this whole coaching staff was with their time. At least the ones we got, and seeing how successful they've been. Obviously you were at the Kent State game too, so I don't know if you saw anything cool during that time, but if you have anything, go for it.
Yeah, no, it was just really a family trip. My kids got to experience their first tailgate. It was dope to watch them, run around and have fun. Them in the suite, eating up all the food in the suite, and then on the way home we got them hella tired, so they just went to sleep, and they made it an easy day for us.
No, that's wonderful. Yeah, I seeing the videos of them just being excited to be there was pretty cool. I mean, at least it was like a good game. Lots of points, pretty fun. A little bit of an injury scare with Thomas. Luckily, he's okay. But I think you guys kind of have a dog in the backup, Kevin Sperry. So it probably was pretty cool to see him up close and personal as well.
Yeah, no, he definitely looked good, man. He looked the part on TV, but seeing a lot of those guys in person, was definitely dope, and just the energy back in Doak Campbell Stadium, man, that was nice to see.
No, that's wonderful. Well, I figured we'd jump into into college since we're talking about it. The new AP poll rankings came out. We had some interesting games, obviously, like the Marquee games, Michigan, Nebraska. Michigan comes up on top. Texas Tech, Utah. Texas Tech might have a second dog of a quarterback in their backup after their starter gets hurt.
Mhm.
Indiana takes down Illinois. They kind of ranking swap, but I'll do what we've been doing usual. I'll give the top 10, next 10, last 5, and if you want to give your reactions, I'll give mine as well. So the top 10 is Ohio State, Miami, Penn State, LSU, Georgia, Oregon, Oklahoma, Florida State, Texas A&M, and Texas. I think this is pretty flawless. I might argue some shuffling around of teams, but I think that this is by far the top 10. I mean, Texas is the only one that I'm like kind of bullish on in the top 10. And then sadly, Oklahoma State, John Mateer today, we're recording on Tuesday. It was announced today that he has to get hand surgery. So he's going to be out for a majority of the rest of the season.
After the big win against Auburn, that was huge. Dang.
I know. And I have him as a Heisman winner in a couple spots, and I really love his game above all. But did anything jump out to you in the top 10?
I mean, the top 10, looks fairly good. I know the one thing, like I said, I agree with you on Texas. They haven't really showed me much to be in the top 10. After that big win by IU, I would have slid them in there. Indiana's big win, I would have slid them in that top 10. A lot of Florida State fans had issues with sliding back. But at the end of the day, you got Miami up next week. Win this week, you got Miami up next week. You don't have an opportunity to jump up in those rankings, so I'm not really worried about that. I want them ranked as high as they possibly can be, because in the beginning of the season, I ain't know what we had, and I had us losing that game. Right now, I see a feast. I see us feasting on Carson Beck, so I'm excited.
No, 100%. I agree with you. And going back to that Texas point, Indiana and Texas Tech both have huge wins. Ole Miss also undefeated. I feel like you kind of have to, in that top 10, especially early in this year, you have to slot as many undefeated teams towards the top as possible. But no, I think, I agree. Florida State, sliding back that one spot. Oklahoma looked really good against that Auburn team. I really hope this game coming up in a week or so, Florida State Miami is going to be a real test, real barn burner. Honestly, probably it's going to tell who wins the ACC.
Yeah, and not even because there's so much to still be dictated. Because I know Georgia Tech has, people think it's an easy schedule. They match up. Everybody's forgetting Syracuse. I know Georgia Tech has looked good, but I think Syracuse, outside of Miami and Florida State, is the third best team in the ACC. I think they're better than Georgia Tech.
Man, shout out Fran Brown, dude. I love his swagger.
Yeah, man. I think they're better than Georgia Tech from the top to the bottom. They lost to a Tennessee team that I believe should have beat Georgia, and I think they'll be able to make a run in the ACC. But the only issue with Syracuse is they run into Georgia Tech, and of course they run into Miami. Can they win both of those games? Georgia Tech is the one that doesn't really run into anybody. They play Syracuse, but outside of that, they don't play Florida State, and they don't play Miami.
Yeah, and we did see Syracuse kind of struggle in some of their games in the early part of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anything for me, their win over Clemson, as exciting as it is, kind of proves to me that Clemson is no longer a premier program this year. Unfortunately, because they've got a lot of good pieces. I think that a lot of these players could be really, really successful in the league or in other teams or on Clemson next year, but I just don't think that they're not meshing well, obviously. Next 10, starting at 11, Indiana, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Michigan, and Missouri. Talking about Indiana, we've already talked about them a little bit, but seeing how amazing they played against Illinois. I mean, I understand like Illinois until recently was not a premier program in college football. They might be in other sports, but college football specifically, seeing Indiana kind of just handle them after it was thought to be a close game. I mean, I think the spread was like plus 5.5.
Yeah.
Going Illinois' way. I love, honestly, this top 25, and we'll get to the next 5 in a second. This top 25 is really, honestly, like almost flawless for me. It's just you see a lot of teams that have a lot of potential, have shown up in big spots. The Vanderbilt last week, showing up in South Carolina, but also like beating the brakes off of a bad team. I think that's what you really want to see with some of these teams, is like you want to see them win those close games and then also just beat the brakes off of these teams that are like lesser than them as far as talent wise. What are your thoughts on the next 10?
Yeah, no, I think Indiana definitely. We talked about them a bit earlier, but they stand out. Specifically from the part, with Indiana last year, everybody thought last year with Indiana was a fluke. They thought they hit a lot of guys in the transfer portal and they're going to be trashing next year. Then Indiana comes out and makes a statement like that. Kirk Signetti has those guys firing on all cylinders, and they're looking like they're going to be a force to be reckoned with as long as he's the coach there. But now you think, man, if he's doing this at Indiana, how long is Indiana going to be able to keep him? That's the real question.
I think that's the question for a lot of people in a lot of these coaching positions. But, I mean, at least he's in a Big Ten program. The only other thing that you can really worry about is like whether or not it's like a bigger Big Ten program or an SEC program scooping him. Florida Gators might have an opportunity to hire a coach in the near future, whether they turn around or not. So, honestly, the thing that really stands out for me with this Indiana team is the renaissance of Fernando Mendoza, their transfer quarterback. I mean, he had a good year last year at Cal, but he wasn't like this.
Yeah.
So seeing him with some competent pieces, almost throwing for 1,000 yards, having 14 touchdowns and no picks. Heisman, top 3 in Heisman right now too, as of right now. So, but I mean, yeah, no, I agree. Michigan getting that win over Nebraska, I love them being the top 20. Missouri, having a couple good quality wins, but nothing crazy. Next 5, I think this is really where it starts getting interesting. USC is at 21, Notre Dame, Illinois, TCU, and BYU. We talked last week. I think Notre Dame is they still need to prove it to me, especially after not them going up 2 spots and letting Purdue hang in there until the end is a little weird for me. Especially when, Auburn lost the game in the last 2 minutes in Mississippi State, I believe is undefeated still.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time putting a 1 and 2 team in the top 25, but it's 22, so I can't complain about it too much. What are your thoughts?
I'm still standing on it. I don't think they should be in the top 25. I think the brand, the logo is ultimately what's keeping them uplifted right now. I do think they're a solid team. They lost to 2 great teams that may have a chance, to get into the college football playoffs. But ultimately, you lost. So until you prove it against good teams, there are other teams right now with better records that have played solid competition, and they should be in the top 25 right now.
No, 100%. 100%. We couldn't agree more on that. I also love seeing TCU in this. I thought SMU was going to beat them, and they handled them. Just handled SMU. One team you won't see in the top 25, Oklahoma State. They're 0-0. They just fired Mike Gundy this morning. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling about that?
Man, this Mike Gundy, when you thought for a while, like me, just growing up being a child, when I thought Oklahoma State, I thought Mike Gundy. So now it's like everything is shifting now. I had never, last year was the the first year I really seen Oklahoma State be bad. And then this year it was just terrible football. I went into it, I saw the Oregon game. I was like, man, maybe Oregon is legit this year. Then I saw Oklahoma State getting whooped again the following week. I was like, maybe Oklahoma State is just bad. And this is just bad football. I don't really understand it because Mike Gundy has been the guy that's been able to figure it out. But you're seeing a lot of coaches that are struggling in this new NIL era. They were able to get certain recruits in, and now they're struggling. Like Dabo struggling in Clemson. You know, there's a changing of the guards now. Now you got some of these smaller teams rising up and balancing things now.
No, 100%. It's a very interesting climate we're in right now as far as coaching. It seems like a lot of this old guard of coaches are really, getting left behind. And you're either forced to be like a Lane Kiffin and like survive and advance, adapt, or you're a Dabo Sweeney and you have a hard time. My hope is, I realistically think that Dabo, like he said, he's 55. He's a young gun. I think Gundy too. Like he's got a chance to really go to just like a group of 5 team and turn them around. It's just sometimes it gets stale.
Yeah.
Phil Jackson didn't coach at the Bulls his whole career. So, looking forward to this week's matchups. We don't need to go too hard into them, but I was going to look specifically at Florida State, Virginia, and one more matchup. What are your thoughts on Florida State, Virginia? We kind of talked about it in this and the Pitt game were the two that felt, and then NC State, of course, but were the ones that kind of felt trappy.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling after seeing the Kent State performance?
Definitely it's still a trap game. I'm worried about it because I did see a lot of mental lapses defensively during the Florida State game. I remember watching it from the booth, and there was a game early on the play in the game where they hit a guy on a trick play for a touchdown. But a lot of people that were watching the game, they don't even know that. Like the series prior, that was a guy streaking down the field that was wide open, and the quarterback just didn't see him. So there were multiple times that guys were running wide open down the field. And like, yo, hold on, what's going on? So Florida State, got a lot back in, get refocused. I don't know if they chilled or whatever the case may be, but I saw the first one that happened, the DB was looking straight into the backfield, and the guy just leaped behind him. So got to get back locked in for this week because Virginia's the real deal on offense. And if you do those type of things, they're going to take advantage of it and embarrass you.
100%. I think that this is honestly, this is the kind of test you want before a big game like Miami. This is a great opportunity for Norvell to really, grab them by their helmets and be like, this is it. You're in it. We beat Alabama. Now we're here. So I'm excited for the game. Should be good. That's a Friday game, which is interesting. Another one that I wanted to talk about was another Friday game, TCU versus Arizona State. It's at Arizona State. I think this is a very intriguing game, obviously, of Arizona State last year, making the college football playoffs with Scatabo, Levitt, and then they lose by 4 to Mississippi State this year. I think this is the chance. This is the only chance that Arizona State, I think, has to really show how legit they are and make it back into the playoff. I think, obviously, Big 12 is kind of stacked this year. It's going to be, if they lose this, I think that they can officially kind of snuff their chances at a playoff bid. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Arizona State was a team that everybody came into the season high on after their the performance last year. Especially with the QB running things, man, and QB that's coming into the season as one of the guys that's projected to be a Heisman winner. So you have a lot of high expectations, and then they take that loss, and this is a huge one. Like you said, man, if they take a loss in this one, they're out of the playoff race, and then there becomes a lot of talk from the media that you don't want leaking into your locker room. So this is a big game. This is a do or die game, and Arizona State has to find a way to get it done. But that being said, I believe in Coach Dillingham. He's a dog, and I truly believe they're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, I think last week's game with TCU SMU. I mean, Sonny Dykes coming from SMU, you can't look bad against your old team. I think this might be a let-off game. A couple other matchups. We don't need to go too in depth with them, but just highlighting them. Oregon, Penn State, like we were talking about, that's a huge game. Alabama, Georgia, another huge game. BYU, Colorado, I kind of sneaky like that game in the late slate. Tennessee, Mississippi State, that's another one where it's like if Mississippi State can have a really good showing, you could see something happening. Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss. This is a really insane weekend of games. So I'm excited to see Notre Dame, Arkansas, USC, Illinois. It's gonna be a fun Saturday. Shifting to Sundays. Last week we had a really good Thursday night football game. Bills versus Miami. Miami holding on longer than I expected them to.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see anything fun in that game? Did you end up watching it?
Yeah, no, I was watching it, man. Just the one thing about the Bills I've seen from the start of the season, since James Cook has got that money, man, you never know how players are gonna perform after they get the money. Some guys chill. Like, for example, Ezekiel Elliott, he looked like a completely different player after he got the money. He wasn't the same Zeke anymore. But then
Mm-hmm.
you saw Saquon Barkley last year. Saquon Barkley took his game to a whole different level, and now you're starting to see the same thing from James Cook. No longer has to worry about injuries, all of these things. His future is secure, so he's going out there. He's giving everything that he has.
No, 100%. James Cook's. I love the old adage, running like he's angry at the ground. He's just he's just pounding it. I love it. Another couple crazy games this past weekend. I mean, obviously there's the Green Bay losing to Cleveland, but I mean, there's always that one weird game in Cleveland. It sucks that it's Green Bay because I think that they genuinely have a chance to be one of the best teams in the league this year. And just because they lost doesn't mean they aren't. But it still was interesting to see that Philadelphia Rams game. Did you watch that?
Man, that game was crazy. That was a game.
Jordan Davis, dude. I mean, and listening to their discourse too about it, where it's like Jordan Davis talking about how their coaches have broken down the launch angle of this dude's kicks at a certain yardage.
Mm-hmm.
That was the I mean, as a football nut, that was my favorite like inside football moment of the weekend. Because I didn't even think about that. That makes perfect sense why you would talk about that, and then you have a dude like Jordan Davis who's an athletic freak running 19 miles an hour, 18 miles an hour.
It was moving.
He was moving, and I love him afterward. The reporter's like, "Have you caught your breath yet?" And he's like, "I don't know, man." He's like that. He's like, "Dude, that was crazy." He's like, "I just ran for the house as soon as I got it." But that was an insane game too. I mean, like a lot of gambling implications. Not to talk only about gambling, but a lot of people had the Rams plus 4.5. It just died in an instant.
Heck no. Yeah, no, that was a dope game. I had last week we talked about it. I got the Rams in my top five, man, and they showed the world why they're there. That's a game that they should have came out with, but ultimately champions never die. Philly's always in the fight, and they came out with a victory. So shout out to the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, and also like shout out to the Eagles for just holding fast. I mean, like a lot of people are talking about how boring it is to watch them, but I mean, you're winning. That's the
Yeah,
thing. Is like as as Jalen Hurts said to Chris Jones, we won the game, didn't we?
yeah.
Um, Tampa Bay, New York, local game, but I bring it up because 3 games in a row, Tampa Bay wins it in a walk-off style, game-winning drive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tyrod Taylor looked pretty good. That was
He did. He did.
kind
He
of
was solid.
I love Tyrod Taylor ever since he was on the Bills. But it's just crazy seeing that. And then like Tampa's just getting injured. That's the problem. Mike Evans out for a few weeks. The whole line's hurt. So it's interesting to see what'll happen with it. But I mean, dude, Baker's another level, man. Um, Another marquee matchup: Los Angeles versus Denver. We really saw our guy Omari Hampton, have his come out party. Unfortunately, due to Najee getting hurt, was found out that it's an Achilles injury, so he's probably out for the season, or he is out for the season. But that was a fun game. And then, I mean, obviously, you get the Giants and Kansas City in a battle for 0-3 matchup. Then the Sunday night game wasn't super entertaining, but the one takeaway or two takeaways: Scadabo's a dog.
Yeah,
He
for
loves
sure.
he he runs through people, and then no more Russ. Jackson Dart going forward.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Man, it's just I just think it wasn't much that Russ was able to give you just at this
No.
point. yes, you got to get a young guy a chance. That's going to be interesting in Cleveland as well. Flacco's play solid, but I feel like that, once they get to a certain point, if they haven't won the amount of games that they want to win, they may give one of the younger guys a shot. But
Yeah.
you got to now in this league, man. You got to see what you got, especially when you're dealing with older guys that don't really bring you much value in the long term.
Yeah, we're seeing that, the Tom Brady's are more of an anomaly than anything. I mean, I can't glaze over it in the spirit of, just being fair, but the Patriots losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Patriots having 5 turnovers. We should have won that game. Aaron Rodgers getting pressured. It shouldn't have been that close. The Patriots put the ball back in his hands so many times that eventually he threw 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns, or they got 3. Lost 21-14. But no, that goes to your point. The older quarterback is always a harder spot. And we saw last year Russ when he was behind that Pittsburgh offensive line, it was a game by game basis. He was either going to throw 350 and 2 touchdowns, or he was going to throw like 148 and a couple picks, because it just depended on pressure. And then last night's game, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. I went to bed before it ended because it was tied and it was like 11 o'clock. But Baltimore, Detroit.
Yeah, no, I watched the whole entire game. Baltimore is looking soft on the defensive side, man, and that's not something you used to saying with the Ravens, man. That's their bread and butter usually, and the Lions ran the ball down their throat at will the whole entire game, and they put them in a position where they can do anything that they wanted at any point.
Yeah. Ravens injured a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Matabuke is not in there. He's one of the biggest game wreckers in the middle of the defensive line. But still, I agree with you. Like, growing up my entire life, that defensive line, that defensive like front seven was terrifying. Sometimes it even made it so like the defensive backs that weren't even that top tier looked amazing because they would pressure guys so much. It was interesting seeing just how high scoring the game was. I mean, obviously, like, Detroit's defense is kind of pieced together, but it was crazy seeing just like how well they were able to hold their own, specifically with those running backs. I mean, Sonic and Knuckles, man, they're crazy.
What do you think about Derrick Henry, man? He's been fumbling a lot this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's another thing. I mean, like, older guys, man. I mean, it's hard. This is a young man's game. I mean, you saw it a lot. Like, it happened twice to Ramondre in the Patriots game. He's not necessarily an old man, but he's an older running back now because he's in his late 20s. You saw it a lot with Adrian Peterson down the stretch. I think if you don't remember, like, the last like 3-4 years, he was had a really hard time holding on to the ball. And I don't think. I mean, like, the only thing I can think of is just, as you get older, your muscles don't necessarily work the same way. But, like, I don't know. Derek's always kind of held the ball in a weird way too, where it was like pretty punchable.
Yeah,
But he was just always fast and huge, so he could just stiff arm you like Josh Norman. Like, he could just put you in the ground. But when he's in those weird scrums, I mean, like, a team like the Lions specifically, like, they're gonna punch the ball out as much as possible. I mean, you even saw Lamar lose the ball a couple times. Like, I think it's just they know now it's a problem, so they're gonna keep trying to go after it.
yeah. I think Derrick Henry's a guy that has been so physically imposing over his career that guys are just so worried about getting him on the ground more than anything, or trying to get out the way and take a bad angle so that he doesn't put him on a highlight. But
Hmm.
one thing I remember when we would play, our running back coaches would never allow us to wear sleeves on our arms. And I know Derrick Henry has the long sleeves on both arms, and those things are
Mm.
very slippery. And I always, even back to the Titans days, I would wonder why he would wear them, but he wasn't fumbling the ball. So I was like, hey, man, I guess he can make it work. And then you see other running backs that would wear them, like Zeke and other guys. But now that, that's starting to become an issue for Henry, it's like that conversation is coming back up. Like, this is why running back coaches would never allow their backs to wear sleeves. Um, I think he figures it out, but it just makes you think, like, are the sleeves part of the issue? I think he's a guy that's just so physically imposing that it never really was a huge problem for him. But like you said, when he finds himself in those weird angles, now those type of things, they come into play.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. I'm gonna have to start paying more attention to that now that I'm thinking about it. Like the sleeves, I know like the rash guards on the back of the arms is a big thing, specifically because they don't want them to wear anything on their forearms, the inner forearms, of course. No, that's a good thing. That's a good observation. I'm gonna have to pay attention more attention to that. Something we talked about too before getting on here, but Desmond Watson
Yeah, shout out Dan.
officially
Dan Big
signing,
Taz.
yeah, signing with the practice squad for the Bucks. What are your thoughts on the not reports, but the observation that they play the Eagles this week, and people think that he might be the key to stopping the tush push with Vita Vea.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought coming into the season. I'm like, man, he gonna be hell with whenever they match up with the Eagles as far as that touch push, and not even just that, like eating up offensive linemen when guys are trying to make plays. He's gonna be a guy that's gonna be able to eat up guys and open up other defenders.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he's gonna be a guy that's gonna get to play anytime soon. Just he's getting back into the thick of things. You don't know what type of he hasn't been playing football. He's just been working out trying to lose his weight. So he's not in any type of football shape. And you don't want to put him in a position for, even if it's just for 4 or 5 plays, to go out there and get himself injured. So it's going to be interesting to see, over the course of the season, his role. But shout out to him for continuing to do the work and lose the weight, man. You see some of these guys, after things don't work out in their favor, some of them just go off the rails with it. But he continued to stay locked in and continue chasing his goal and ultimately stay ready, man.
No, and that's all. That's what football is all about, dude. I mean, that's why these spring leagues are so important. That's why these different divisions of college are so important. That's why it's so interesting that there's not a strict developmental league until recently with the UFL for the NFL. It's just been the practice squad. Expanded practice squads has helped a lot too. So it's nice to see a guy like him get a chance to really prove himself and have a team really back him and believe in him and keep in contact with him. I think that's the big thing too. Well, Freddie, I think that kind of covers a lot of the football stuff. I don't know if you have anything else. I know next week we're going to try to do football guys, but what were you going to say?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say next week we did football guys for a good bit leading up to the season. Kind of got in this weird spot where we weren't able to record a lot. I know we both watch way more than enough football, so I'm thinking next week we both have at least one football guy, whether it be college or pro. And we can kind of give them a nice shout out. But yeah, I think we're in a good spot.
We're excited, man. Finally be able to get the football guys back, and we're bringing something new to the channel. Everything was in person. Now we're bringing the virtual side to it, so we'll be able to get some dope guests that we weren't necessarily able to get into the studio, for scheduling conflicts, whatever the case may be on both sides. But now we'll be able to bring you more dope, interviews. So I'm definitely excited about that.
Yeah, no, super excited about this this new element of the channel. It'll be just nothing but for the good, which is exciting. We'll still be doing as many in-person things as possible, but those guys who are out of town or harder to schedule, this will be perfect for them. Before we leave, I do want to thank our sponsors, specifically our presenting sponsor, Stein Financial, as well as our other sponsors, T1RX, Concord Coffee, and Indie Atlantic Films. And thank you, everybody who's watching. It's super fun to bring these episodes to life. The support's been insane. We're creeping up on 20,000 subscribers on YouTube and 3,000 followers on Instagram. So that's something exciting. We've been talking about doing a giveaway. We're trying to figure that out. We're not 100% sure what that will be, but just keep that in mind. So, well, I'll see you next time, Freddie.
Yes, sir.